So this is our third week. We've looked at animal and plant cells week 1. Then last week we were looking at blood cells. And today we're going to look specifically at neurons, so nerve cells, and we're going to talk about what they are. So our body contains lots of different types of cells. We have cells which help we have cells in our skin. We have cells all around our body. We've got different types of cells, blood cells, white blood cells. We have like I've mentioned, skin cells before. We've got cells which are muscle cells, and they help make muscles. So we have loads of different types of cells, and each one of them will have a unique job to do in our body. So we've looked at animal cells generically, we've looked at plant cells generically, and then last week we looked specifically at one type of animal cell, which was the blood cell. And this week we're going to specifically look at neurons, which are nerve cells. So for those of you who are thinking, what are nerve cells? Any ideas? If you are watching this, can you type in what you think a nerve cell is? And while you're doing that, I'm going to get my bits and pieces together. I've just changed over my entire desk, so at some point I might go off screen because I've realized I haven't put everything in front of me that I need. And I might need to go and grab something. So, Kimi saying, hello, I'm so excited to learn new things today. Brilliant. I'm excited to be teaching you guys today. So we're going to need some paper. We're going to need some colors again, and some scissors and some glue. So I'm going to just show you my desk so you can see what I've got here. Let's share my screen and let's get started. So where am I? Okay. Doesn't look like there's anything on the desk at the moment. So here we've got our glue. I've got my scissors. I've got loads of colors. So let me just show you my colors. I've got loads of colors over here. I've got loads. I'm going to leave all of them in the jar though, because I won't be able to find them then. And then I've also got colored paper. So I've got loads of colored paper that I had last week as well. So if you are doing this live with me, make sure that you're ready and you've got everything prepared. So I've got all of these bits here. Okay, I've got loads of colors over here, and we're going to get started in a second. And I've got bits and pieces as well that we didn't actually end up using the entire page of from last week. So I'm going to put this over here because I might use some of these today. So again, we're going to need all the same materials that we have been using over the last couple of sessions. Okay, let's see. Are we ready then? Right, let's get started then, guys. So what we're going to be looking at today is nerve cells. So nerve cells are also known as neurons. So I'm going to, on my piece of paper, write the word neurons. Let's get that written over here. I'm going to grab a pen and I'm going to write here neurons. So this is good. Oh, let's just recap what we did before. First week, we looked at animal and plant cells. Okay, so this was the first week. So let's do a quick little recap before we start. So here, sorry guys, my screen keeps doing weird stuff. So if I pause, it's just because I'm trying to sort it out. So here what we have is, what's this bit here? This bit here is called the nucleus, the boss of the cell. Okay, this is what controls the rest of the cell. It's like the boss in an office. Then here we have cytoplasm. What did we do for cytoplasm? Working, right? Cytoplasm is the yellow bit here, and this is going to be important because we're going to need some yellow bit today as well. So this is a cytoplasm, and this is where chemical reactions happen. Okay, and in an office, that's where the workers do all the work. Then what we have over here, remember what we did with this? This was our little movement, and that was cell membrane. Cell membrane. And these are the windows and doors which allow things to enter and leave the cell. Okay, so that's the edge of the yellow bit here. Next, what we had, and we covered this, we're going to cover this really quickly because we're not focused on plant cells this week. we have 3 extra things that you find in a plant cell. The first one is this extra security fence. And remember, we made the movement, the extra security fence. Now, this helps to give the cell a rigid structure, which is why this is rectangular and it's not just a blob. And this security fence is called the cell wall. It gives support to the cell. Okay. Next, what we have is the refrigerator. And I can't remember what we did for the refrigerator. Was it the door that we did? Or did we do something else? Oh, no, we did. Because inside the refrigerator, we store nutrients. And there's cell sap in there. And that's called the vacuole. And then finally, we have these little green bits over here. And these are chloroplasts. And that they're like ovens, because chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, which gives the green pigmentation. And that's where the plant cell makes food. Okay, so this is what we have. Then last week, what did we do? Let's do a little recap of last week before we move on. Last week, we looked at red blood cells and plasma and white blood cells and platelets. So we took a sample of our blood. I talked about how we can put that into a centrifuge that will then separate into different sections because of the density. Densities are different. This is a heavier bit, so it'll go right down to the bottom. This is a red blood cell. It contains hemoglobin, which give the color red, but it has no nucleus. So it's like having this animal cell, but without the boss, and it's circular. It's like squished. And then what we have also is we have this small section in the middle here, which is white blood cells. Less than 1% of blood less than 1% of blood is white blood cells. But white blood cells are super important. And I've just realized I didn't write anything here. White blood cells, because we did it at the back, didn't we? White blood cells help fight infection. They help fight all microorganisms that have entered your body. Okay, so white blood cells are also responsible for producing antibodies. Then we have platelets. And these are really important. And I describe them like little spiders. They go running to a cut and they will then just extend and stop the blood from pouring out of your body. So they clot the blood and they prevent microorganisms from entering your body and from you from getting an infection. So they're really, really super important. And then finally, we have plasma. And your blood, your actual blood, the blood that you bleed, contains this. Is yellow, but the blood that we bleed doesn't look yellow because we've got the red pigmentation mixed in together. Think about it like this. If I have a glass of water and I've added a little bit of food coloring, it might be a little bit of food coloring, but it's going to change the entire liquid into red, right? And that's what this red color does in the red blood cells. It changes our blood to appear red. But there's a large section of plasma inside of our blood. And plasma is a pale yellow liquid. It carries lots of things. It carries red blood cells, it carries carbon dioxide, it carries urea, it carries food, and it carries heat around our body. So it's super, super, super important. So if you give blood, you're not just saving one person's life, you're potentially saving multiple people's lives, because one person might need red blood cells, another person might need white blood cells or platelets, and a third person might need plasma. So you're actually saving multiple people's lives by giving blood. Right, so today what we're going to be looking at is neurons. So I'm going to go to an empty piece of paper and I'm going to write the word neurons. Let's make sure that I spell this correctly. So we're going to have N. Now, neurons is a special scientific word for nerve cells. So N, I'm going to just shift my camera slightly. Hold on a second, guys. Let me just move. There we go. Right, so we're going to have neurons, N, E, U. So these are basically nerve cells, and we're going to be cutting out and producing a nerve cell in a second. Neurons. And there's loads of other types of cells. I could have easily looked at muscle cells today because muscle cells are really fascinating too. And I've done like a month worth of workshops on just muscle cells, but we're going to look at neurons today. So neurons are basically nerve cells. And when you're thinking, well, what are nerve cells? Well, if you think about it, when I touch this paper, I can feel my finger touching the paper. If I burn myself, I'm going to feel my hand getting hot and I'm going to pull away really quickly. If I look at an object, I'm going to see it. If someone talks to me, I'm going to be able to hear it. If our parents are cooking food, we're going to be able to smell it. And all of these different senses are using our nervous system. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that our body has loads and loads of millions and millions of nerve cells. Those nerve cells go from the tips of our finger or all over our body, and they go to our brain. And there's a connection back, up and down. It's like a big circuit. Our body is like a big electrical circuit, okay, of lots of different wires. And what happens is when we touch, when we smell, when we hear, when we see things, there's nerve signals. There's little signals going all around our body, sending signals to our brain, and our brain sending signals back. So for example, if I touch something, I'm getting a signal that's going to my brain and telling me I've touched something. And then I can send a signal from my brain to my finger to move it, and it'll move. Okay, and every movement is our body sending signals around our body. Hi, Agnes. So that's what we have happening. Now, we have two different types of reactions. One reaction is voluntarily. So here I'm moving my finger because I want to move it. I've said to my brain, I'm going to move my finger, and my finger moves. There's another reaction which happens without us even thinking. It's an automatic reaction to save ourselves from getting hurt. So if this paper was super hot and I touched it, would I then have to go, oh, I need to move my finger away? No, I would quickly move my finger away because the signal would say, danger, I need to move my finger away. So our nervous system is super, super, super important in keeping us safe, but also for us to be able to move our body and to do as we please. So let's have a look at what makes our neurons. But before we do that, we're going to write a couple of notes over here. So neurons send and receive. So they send and receive if I've spelt this wrong, please let me know. I think receive looks wrong, but I don't know. Send and receive signals. They send and receive signals from your brain. From your brain. And our brain is like a supercomputer. It's connected up with so many wires. And the next bit, like, who wants to take a guess? How many neurons do you think we have in our body? Any ideas? How many neurons do you think we have in our body? Does anyone want to take a guess? We've got, and I'm going to give at birth. At birth, we have how many neurons? I'm going to let you guys guess. How many neurons do you think we have at birth? And the important thing here is neurons don't reproduce or regenerate. What does that mean? That means if you damage a neuron, you're never ever going to get it back. Once you damage a neuron, that's it. You've damaged it. Okay, this is why if someone severely burns themselves, they can't feel in that part of their body because they've burnt the neurons connections. So you've got to be really careful and look after your body so you don't end up losing something that you can never get back again. So who wants to take a guess? How many neurons do you think we have in our body? How many neurons? Do you think 1 million? Do you think 1 billion? How many? How many neurons do you think we have in our body? Anyone? So we have a total of 100 billion neurons. 100, oh, more than just millions, it's billions. 100 billion neurons. 100 billion neurons. Not a million. 100 billion. How many zeros is that? That's 9 extra zeros on top of the 100 over here. So if I were to write this in full, it would be this, this, this. That's 1 million. If I have a 1 here, that's 1 million. If I have a 1 here, that's going to be 1 billion. It is 100 billion neurons. Yeah, it's a lot. It's huge amounts. So we have loads of these, and they don't all look the same. They have different versions as well, but we're probably just going to have time to focus on one today. Oh, I forgot to say, we looked at white blood cells as well. Look at this. Forgot to mention this bit. So let me just find a yellow piece of paper because I'm going to be cutting out a neuron. So I'm going to use the piece of paper that I started cutting already. Okay, so I've got this piece of paper from last time. I've already cut an animal and a plant cells, not membrane, cytoplasm out from there. So what I'm going to do on this one, and watch how I'm going to draw this. And this is quite fun to draw, guys. So I want you to take your pen or pencil, and we are going to be drawing curves like this. So it looks like there's been a splat of paint, basically. Like a funny splat of paint, like this. Okay, and that's going to be the body of our neuron. So I want you guys to cut this out. So let's cut this out, guys. Let's cut this out. First of all, I'm just going to cut the excess card over here so then I can take some time cutting that out. Now, this part of the neuron is called the cell body. Okay, so this is where you find the cytoplasm. This is your cytoplasm of your body. What do you think we're going to have inside of this? What do you think? What do we find in a typical animal cell, do you think? Any ideas? So let me cut this out. Over here and over here. This bit has a special name. So this is called a soma, S-O-M-A. Okay, the cell body is known as soma. And this is in a weird shape. It's not like your normal animal cell shape. It's a weird shape. So I'm just going to go around and I'm going to cut all of this out like this. And then we're going to stick it down. So let us cut that out like this. And don't worry if you've got different amounts of curves. They all look very different anyway. And if you ever get a chance to look at a nerve cell down the microscope, make sure you take that opportunity because they're amazing. Right, let's move all this rubbish out the way. And I'm going to cut, well, I've cut this. I'm going to stick it down now. Let's stick this down over here. Okay, so I'm going to grab my glue. Is that lighting? Better like this. Right, let's get that stuck then. So this is called the cell body or the soma, and it basically has your cytoplasm, and the cytoplasm has the boss in there. So what was the boss called? It's called the nucleus. So we need to draw, well, we need to cut out the nucleus. So let's do this over here first. And then what color did we use for our nucleus when we did our animal cells? We used blue. So I'm going to use blue again just to color code everything. Let's grab our blue. Where's my blue gone? Do I have blue left, or have I used my blue card? I don't seem to have any blue. Oh no, I have no blue left. So I might just cut out a different color and then color it in blue. I think that I can do that. I can do that. So I'm going to grab some light yellow, and I'm going to cut that into a circle. This is going to be my nucleus, but I'm going to color it in blue so it matches the color that I've got previously. So let me get some blue. What if it goes green now? No, it looks blue. Well, it looks gray. So I'm going to color that in, and that's going to be my nucleus. So your nerve cell or your neuron, so neuron is a special name for a nerve cell. It still has a nucleus, and the nucleus is found in the cell body. So that's going to be over here. But neurons are weird. They have weird stuff going on, and we're going to have a look at that. So let's stick this over here first of all. And then I'm going to use an arrow to label that in a second. But before I do that, I'm going to grab myself a purple color. Okay. Now what happens here is that we've got lots of little branches. They're branch-like. I'm just going to go over the edges over here. We've got little branches coming out like this. And I'm not going to put any branches on this one. I'll show you why in a second. But we've got lots of little branches coming out. And my purple's running out. All my felt tips are running out. It's because I draw and color so much, guys. Let's see if I've got another felt tip pen that works. Oh, we can do it pink. Pink's nice. I'm going to go over everything in pink, I think. So let's do, that's better. That works. So we've got these branches coming out like this. I need to chuck away the felt tips that don't work, so I don't get confused. Right. Okay. And these branches have a special name. They are called dendrites. They're fibrous roots, and they look like roots, don't they? They look like plant roots. They're fibrous roots, and they act like antennae. They send and they receive and they process signals from something, and I'll show you where. But there's something else that's on this side, and it sends signals, and the signals come down here, and then they go down here, and then there's going to be a tail. A neuron has a really long tail, and we're going to draw that, or we're going to cut it. Let's cut it out. I'm going to grab some green. I fancy doing this in green. And I'm going to do, and they're like lots of beads together. So I'm going to do drawings of round circles like this. And we're going to cut these out, and these are going to become tails. And they've got little circles in there like this. And I'm going to do about 8 of these. And we're going to cut these out. Once we've got the basic shape, then we'll start adding the arrows and labeling everything, and I'll show you all the different parts of it. So let's cut this out first of all. And this tail has a special name. It's called an axon. A-X-O-N, axon. So let's cut this out. So now this looks completely different from the animal cell that we were looking at in week 1. It also looks very different from blood cells, because this cell has a specific function. So let's put this over here like that. And I'm going to cut each of these out here. Again. Who's doing this live with me? Is any one of you doing this live, or are you watching this on replay? Let me know, guys. If you're watching it on replay, let me know. Right, let's have a look. Let's cut this out. I'm going to go around in a circle. Let's going to cut this out. So this is called the axon. The axon is a very specialized, and it transmits electrical signals or chemical signals to the cell. So we've got like that. And there's different types of neurons. Okay, so we've got sensory neurons. They're for taste, smell. Taste and smell have got chemical input. That means there's chemicals that trigger. So smell, for example, we have little chemicals that enter our nose, and they trigger our smell because our olfactory bulb is just above our nostrils, well, just above here. And that kind of, every time like a small molecules enters, it will trigger a different type of smell because the chemical that is there is different. So those are more chemical based. So is taste. Taste is chemical because it's a type of food that we are putting into our mouth and it's going to have a particular taste. But taste, we normally think that we're tasting from our mouth. We're also kind of tasting from our nose as well, because it's both the smell and the taste which gives us actually the taste, right? So that's where the difference is, because if you have a blocked nose, you can't really taste food that well. And if you've had COVID over the last year and you have lost your taste of smell, sometimes that makes you lose your taste of your taste as well. Your taste buds don't work the same way, because you are tasting both through your nose and through your mouth in a weird sort of way. And then we've got other things like hearing and seeing and sensing, which are more physical input. So let us do, because with eyes, you've actually got light entering. With hearing, you actually have vibrations of particles. It's not a chemical input. With touch, again, it's physical. You're touching something. And then you've got something called motor neurons. So there's different types of neurons. There's sensory neurons, which are about senses. Motor neurons are different. There's voluntary, there's involuntary. So when I'm touching this piece of paper, this is voluntary because I'm telling my muscles to move. This involves muscles. Then there's involuntary, and things like when you quickly move your hand away, when you're digesting food, that's involuntary. You don't think to yourself, I'm going to digest food today. You don't think to yourself, I'm going to let my heart beat today. That happens automatically. You don't even have to think about breathing. It happens automatically, right? So those kind of things are involuntary. Then you have something called interneurons. And those are found in your spinal cord and brain. So first of all, I'm going to create a tail. How cute is my tail? I think that looks cute. I'm going to stick this down. Let's stick our tail down. So far I have got the soma, the nucleus. These are called dendrites. They're like little roots. Then we have the axon, and I'm going to stick my axon down. Let's stick that down here. We've got 1, 2. You can have as many little circles as you want or as less as you like, but just make sure that you've got a tail on your neuron. 3, 4, 5. Let's stick that down. 6. I've got 8, I think, in total. 7 and 8. So I'm going to get those stuck down. And just like we've got these like roots at the beginning, we have something at the end of the tail as well that I'm going to draw on. And it's different from the dendrites. So the bit at the end of the tail also looks like it is a root. Okay, so this bit over here looks something like this. It looks like roots. Ooh. Now what happens is you've got millions and billions of these. Now imagine you have one neuron here, then you have another neuron after it, then you have another neuron, then you have another neuron. So there's loads of neurons which are back to back like this. Now between the neurons don't touch. So this bit doesn't touch. There's going to be this end bit. This is called the axon terminal. So this is the axon. This is the axon terminal. At the end of this, you will then have the end of another neuron over here, axon terminal, and there's a gap. And there's a little gap between them where they send chemical signals across. Okay, and then it then continues sending that signal, and electrical signals go down here, and then like they carry on, because then there's another one after that, right? So it's continuous. So let's now label everything, guys. Let's start to put together some labels. So the first thing that we've got is a cell body, this bit here. Now I'm going to use a black to outline so the yellow bit here that I have pointed to, this is called the cell body or the soma. So I'm going to write over here, and how did I do it last time? Was it just in colors? I think I just did it in colors, right? So I'm going to write over here, cell body, but it's also called, I'm going to put in brackets, soma. Special name. This is basically the cytoplasm. Okay, well, all the workers are doing the hard work. Right, let's have a look at this bit. This is a nucleus, right? You guys know that. This is the boss of the cell. So I'm going to draw, oops, wrong pen. I'm going to draw an arrow that comes down here like this. Okay, and again, I think my pen is running out. We're going to write over here, nucleus. Nucleus, the boss of the cell. Let's color these in. Let's color these arrows in. Like that. Right, next what we have. Oh, let's do this bit first. Dendrites. Okay, so these are fibrous roots. They're like antennae, just like when we have aliens and you think of them as having antennae. This cell body, this soma, this neuron cell has got these dendrites. They're like little antennae. Okay, and they send and receive and process signals from the axon. So these signals over here will be coming across and they'll be going across like that. So what we have here is dendrites. Let's write over here dendrites. D-E-N, dendrites. D-R-I-T-E-S. So these here are called dendrites. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to copy that down if you haven't already. And then if anyone remembers, tell me what you think this is and this bit. What do you think those are? Can you remember what they are? Any ideas? Any ideas? Who can tell me what the green tail is called and what the roots at the ends are called? Any ideas? Oh, thank you. Nikum is saying, I am in awe of your drawings. Well, it's not even a drawing. We've cut it out, right? It's all crafting and they're simple shapes. The whole scientific world, right? All of science, all of nature is just shapes and patterns and designs. And we can take some time to get to know what those designs look like and make stylized drawings and make our notes look really amazing. Right now, when you look at a neuron under a microscope, it looks quite different than this. You can kind of make out something that is like that. You can kind of make out that there's a tail to it, but it doesn't look like this. It looks a bit different. It looks more biological, right? But we can draw like really bold drawings to just help us understand how different functions work. So remember, dendrites will take chemical signals from the end of this. There's going to be loads of those there. They'll take chemical signals, they'll convert them into electrical signals. Those electrical signals will go towards inside of the cell body. Then those electrical signals will carry on down here and they will then pass along the roots, and these roots have a particular name, and then they'll go on to another neuron. And that gap between this and the next neuron is called the synapses. Or synopsis. I don't know. I've forgotten. One or the other. Not important. We're looking at the neuron today, so that's fine. So let's have a look at what the axon. Oh, I've told you the answer. This is called the axon. What is a tail called? It's called the axon. So here I'm going to write axon. I'm going to go over these arrows in black as well, just so everything matches, because I've done these in black. Right, and the axon, this is basically the tail. And the axon is basically the tail, but it has like fatty substance around the outside of it, and that's called the myelin. So it's got a fatty substance around it, and that helps to conduct the electricity. But we're just interested in the fact that this is the axon, because I think there's going to be too much new terminology, and just like me, I can't pronounce half of it. So difficult. So here, this is the axon. It's a specialized projection that's come out of the cell that you find in neurons, because the animal cell we looked at is a very generic view of a cell. And then when a cell has a specific job, it's gonna change into something very specific, right? It'll have a specific role, so it needs to look a certain way. Just like, think about humans. Humans are all the same. We've got a body, we've got arms and legs, and we can hear, and we can do all the rest of the same things. And then if you then have a human that is a firefighter, the firefighter is going to look a lot different, because he's going to wear a helmet, and he'll have a hose, and he'll have other gear. Now, if you have a human that's a doctor and he's doing some surgery, then he'll be wearing a mask. So you can think about a cell like that. You have the basic cell, this animal cell that we looked at in week 1. Then you have specialized cells. So these have got special careers, right? And this one is a neuron. So this neuron has got a tail attached to it, because it's going to need that tail to send electrical signals across. Okay. So here, what we can now do is label the final bit, and that is called the axon terminal. So if you remember that, that's super amazing. Axon terminal. And I'm going to write terminal. Let's color this in as well. And what you can do is we can just make this look nice and cool now by coloring, adding some color to the title as well. Let's add some color. I'm going to use crayons now. Let's make that look nice and cool. So neurons, they're nerve cells, they're specialized animal cells that have got a very specific function, just like blood cells have got a very, very specific function. Then I'm going to add a couple of notes for each of the features so that you don't forget what we've just done today. Let's color in. And I'm going to have a different color. What other color shall I have? Oh, it's raining so badly today. Is it raining where you guys are? Let's color that in. I'm going to have, I've made it a bit dull. Let's add some bright colors in as well. I don't have a yellow crayon, but I have a yellow felt tip. And then what else do I have? I've got this color over here. And then final one, I'm going to do that red. Neurons. Okay, so we've got the cell body. soma, this is a cytoplasm. We got the nucleus, that's a control center, so we don't need to include anything new there because this is what we already had. We've got dendrites, okay? So these receive signals from the axon terminals of another neuron. So we can say here, they receive signals, receive electrical signals. They receive electrical signals. Okay. And then what we also have is the axon. Okay, this is a tail basically, and it transmits signals. And then we have the axon terminal. Okay, so the axon terminal is basically the end of the axon. And that is it. This is our neuron. And like I said, we can have lots of different types of neurons. So I'm going to show you very quickly the 3 different types of neurons. So this is like how a typical neuron will look like. And then when we have specialized neurons, so I talked about sensory neurons, I talked about motor neurons, and I talked about interneurons, which are found in your spinal cord and brain. Okay. And what I'm going to do quickly is to also do little drawings of what they look like, just so you have an idea of what they are like and how they differ from a typical neuron. So let me find a blank piece of paper. If I can't do a blank piece, I can just do it at the back of that. I might do it at the back of that. Yeah, I'm going to do it at the back of this. So if you're done with this, let's turn this over. And we're going to have a look at the 3 different types of neurons then. So the first one is a sensory neuron. Okay, a sensory neuron. Now this looks a bit wacky. So I'm going to grab my yellow again. I'm going to show you what the difference is between this and another one. So this one looks basically like an alien. So I'm going to draw here. It looks like an alien, right? So here, I'm going to cut that out. It looks like a balloon. So this is a sensory neuron, and I explained earlier that sensory neurons either send chemical or there's a physical input or a chemical input, and they are responsible for our senses to function. So I'm just going to go around this. So it looks like this, and then it has the nucleus, and I'm not going to cut the nucleus because it's going to be tiny, so I'm just going to draw it on here. So it's got the nucleus there, and it doesn't have the weird sort of flowery shape that this one had over here. It doesn't have that. It's just round like this. And then I'm going to cut the axon tail out. Actually, if I start cutting that, it's going to take forever. So what I'm going to do instead is just write down what it is and draw the rest of it. So this first one, because I'm just seeing the time and we don't have very long left. So this is sensory. This is a sensory neuron, and I'm going to stick this down. And a sensory neuron is slightly different because it's got a special role, right? The role is to gather the signals from your senses and send them to the brain. So the way that this looks is like this, and then it has its kind of tail, and either side it has a projection like this, and then over here it's like it's got roots or hands. They look like hands. It looks like an alien. If you turn it to the side, it literally looks like an alien. Look, it looks like an alien head with arms and hands, a bit like a scarecrow. Okay, and with a sensory neuron, the signals are going in this direction. So with the signals that we were looking here, the signals are coming down here, they're going down here, they're going across. With this one over here, the signals are going down like that. Okay, right, let's have a look at the next one then. The next one is the motor neuron. So remember I talked about voluntary and involuntary things that your body does. So voluntary would be you're moving your muscles, you're telling your arm to be moved, and then your muscles are also cells and they contain neurons in there. So your signal goes from your brain to your muscles and say, move arm, and then your arm muscles will move and they'll help your arm to move. Now there's other things like involuntary, like your digestive system. You don't say to your brain, digest food in stomach. It automatically does that, right? So here what we have now, this looks very similar to what we had earlier. So I'm going to kind of do that shape again that we had earlier. And you might want to draw this first. I'm just going to cut it out because I think it's a little fun when I do it this way. So again, it's got a distinctive cell body. Looks something like that. So this is very similar to the one that we've already drawn. And this is called the motor neuron. So with the sensory, this is responsible for your 5 senses. Okay, so sensory neurons are responsible for things like taste, smell. And remember, with taste and smell, we said it was chemical input. Then we have hearing. Hearing is not chemical, those are just air vibrations. Hearing, seeing is not chemical, it is light entering your eyes. And then sensing, you're literally touching something, right? So these sensory neurons are responsible for signals to go to your brain from those 5 senses. And then your motor neuron, let's stick that down first of all. Where's my glue stick? Glue, glue. Glue, glue, glue. Okay, and this one looks very similar to what we had on the previous page. You've got your axon terminal, and then you've got, sorry, your axon, and then your axon terminal at the end. So it looks like that. And I can't forget the nucleus there. Okay, so that's your motor neuron. And then your final one, and this is a bit wacky one. So I am going to write interneuron. So these are the neurons that are found between your brain and your spinal cord. So your spinal cord, if you imagine your spine is the backbone that you have. You have like a fleshy, squidgy bit that runs all the way down, and that is your spinal cord. Now, your spinal cord is super, super important. The whole reason for your backbone is not only to stand up straight, but it's also to protect your spinal cord. If you damage your spinal cord, and some people have when they've fallen off horses, they damage their spinal cord, it could basically paralyze you, and maybe your arms or your legs won't work or something won't function. So the spinal cord contains some really important neurons. And this literally looks like an alien. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to draw here. Ooh, it's alien with like a gazillion arms. You can have fun creating your alien monster. Ooh. There we go. And the yellow section is kind of found roughly here. And I'm just going to use my highlighter for this. Okay, and then you still have your nucleus. And in both of these cases, the signals are going in this direction. So signals come from your dendrites and they go this way. Signals are coming down here. So there are still variations. You've got your cell, your animal cell, then you've got your neurons, which typically looks like this, but then you've got specialist neurons, which are responsible for certain things in your body, and you've got sensory, you've got motor, you've got interneurons. So motor responsible for voluntary and involuntary movement between your muscles, and then interneurons are found in your spinal cord. Okay, so this is the end of our third session on cells. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been fab going through all of this with you guys. And look at the amazing notes that we've produced as a result. I'm just going to put them all together. Look at these amazing notes, guys. We've got animal plant cells. We've got red blood cells, plasma, white blood cells, platelets, and some more stuff over the back here. Then we've got neurons and some more stuff over the back over here. So loads of amazing notes. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's been so much fun doing this, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.